Alrighty, you guys. So today I just wanna talk about my thoughts on the whole global warming and climate change, this whole thing going on right now. I totally think that yes, we should use recyclables. We should probably create more energy efficient vehicles and use more solar panels and windmills and all these type of things, right? But what I get a little confused about this whole thing is it's very political in a sense. And I don't think recycling and all these things should be something political. I think that's very bipartisan. But so basically what it looks like to me is if you look at the political side of it, everyone pushing for these agendas, the Green New Deal, this Greta Thunberg, 16-year-old girl, all this kind of stuff. What it seems like to me almost is there's people behind the curtain, right? I was just reading an article with Greta, for example, and there's a bunch of photos of pretty much everywhere she's at, these major conferences or major events. She's surrounded by certain individuals that are tied to certain organizations that are funded by the Bill Gates and the Soros and all these type of individuals that are for no borders and just a one world government in a sense, a one world united. And I do agree on some level, if we're gonna reach some Star Trek type of consciousness, we're not gonna get there by having borders. We're not gonna get there by Republican Democrats. We're not gonna get there with different religions. We're gonna have to unite as one humanity under one roof, right? But I don't know, it's very, very confusing to me. I don't know the answer. I do know that yeah, we shouldn't pollute, we shouldn't do these things that we're doing. But I don't know if taxing carbon emissions, I don't know if the economic part of the game is if that's something that needs to be, if that's something that's needed, if that makes any sense. I don't know if there needs to be threats or coercion. I think that we should all agree on a consensus, and if we don't agree, it's really hard to explain how I feel. So to come from a state of mind of this universe, or this world that we live in, is all frequency, vibrations, and dimensions, and all this trippy concepts, right? So with that being said, consciousness is what controls or what rules this domain, right? It's the observer, it's the person who's aware of what's happening. So if we're aware of what's happening, then it's up to us to change ourselves to make the difference in this reality. It's not up to us to make governments force us to make that change, not up to corporations to make that change. So what I guess I'm trying to say is I think the way that all these climate activists and all these people going about this, I think it's actually doing a lot more harm than it is doing any good. I think that it's just putting negative energy out there. I think that, for example, I use the Greta girl because I was just researching her a little bit. I'm not an expert. I don't know anything about her. I have no very brief information about her, so I can't really make a judgment on her as a person. But if she was really serious about what she's saying, why is the revolution her going to the UN, or her going to Congress, or her going to these different governments and speaking her mind, or how she feels about the situation? Why not start the revolution and plant trees? Why not start the revolution and run a garden and then start eating all the food that you plant in your garden, start feeding your community with the food you plant in your garden that's organic and et cetera, et cetera. So like, I don't think that that's the answer. I think that it's when I was younger, I used to think that like protesting and like I never went to a protest, I never did any of that, but like I used to think that protesting and like saying fuck the man and like all these things were like a positive thing to do. I thought all these things were like very constructive. But the older I get, the more I realize that like, whoa, like the real revolution is if I go plant a tree. The real revolution is if I buy organic food. If I plant my own tomatoes. That's the real revolution. It's not about me like telling the government like why would I trust them? The government's just a business, and like I don't know if this is true, but I read somewhere that like government in Latin, if you break it into things like government, it's to control the mind, to control society, to control culture. So that's all government really is. So like, why would we want that to be our influence? Why would we want that to be the authority? Why not allow ourselves as human beings on this planet to make the choice for ourselves? And if someone wants to be a scumbag, they can be a scumbag. I mean, it's going to affect me, I guess, down the line, but I think that freedom is something that's so valuable in the human experience that it is something learned in time. You make a poor choice, eventually you learn not to make that choice again. So this whole thing of like protests and activism and stuff like that, I think I honestly think it's like doing more harm than it is doing good. I think that if we are serious about wanting to make a change, I think that everyone that's going to these climate events and everyone who's like speaking up for this change, go fucking plant a tree. Go like fucking buy organic produce. Like stop participating in the system. Stop voting. Like if nobody votes, then no one gets elected, right? So it's like, and then what's left? Then it's just you and me in our town deciding how things run. So that's basically where I'm coming from on this. Like I totally support the ideas on a certain level, that like we don't need to pollute, we need to like make a change in the environment, we need to like change the way we're consuming and everything. But I think that it's definitely like there's definitely a better way to do this. I don't think that that strategy is actually going to help us. I think it's going to divide us, and I think it's going to lead to just arguments. But yeah, that's my thoughts, you guys. Plant a tree. I love you all. Subscribe. More videos to come soon. Lots been going on in my life, so a little stressful. That's change though. Change is constant. Like change is always here. So like, who am I to say that change is not always present? All right, I love you all. Subscribe.